Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Book Time with Elvis, and to today's edition of Wordy Wednesday. We're going to continue with our look at the great Dr. Samuel Johnson and his rather amusing to today's ears dictionary. So you can see behind me, by the way, that's Elvis. He's just come back from a walk. He's very muddy and probably shouldn't be sitting on the sofa, but Elvis doesn't listen to me either. Elvis, what are you doing? Oh, sorry. So, yes, as I said, we're going to continue looking at Johnson's dictionary, but I thought we'd start with, before we go into the words for the week, we will kind of break up a little bit of a biography of Johnson, so hopefully you'd be interested to hear a bit about him. Samuel Johnson was born in Lichfield in 1709, and he was actually born above a bookshop, which is great for us, isn't it? And it was his father's bookshop. And I'll see if I can stick a picture in there so you can see what it looks like. Lichfield is a very nice town in England. Surprisingly, his mother was over 40 years old when she gave birth to Johnson, which I guess was quite unusual at the time. And actually, which I'll mention later, he had a younger brother. So there you go. As a baby, apparently Johnson never cried, and that his aunt once said that if she'd seen him in the street as an abandoned baby, she wouldn't have picked him up. So he must have been very odd looking indeed. Charming woman, I suppose. He was a sickly infant, and he contracted the disease known as scrofula when he was little, and this was commonly known as the king's evil, because apparently the only cure for this disease was the royal touch. So the king or queen of the day, if they touched you and you're suffering from scrofula, you were supposed to be cured. In Johnson's case, though, this didn't work. He was presented to Queen Anne. She touched him. However, it didn't cure him, and he was subjected to a series of operations which left terrible scars across his face and all over his body, which he carried throughout his life. As I mentioned before, his mother gave birth to another son, Johnson's younger brother, Nathaniel, and I suppose this would have been even more surprising because she's even older than 40 by this point, of course. However, the birth of Nathaniel put extra financial burdens on the Johnson family, which they were not able to afford. So we'll continue the story next week, if you're interested, I hope. So that's a little bit about the early life of Dr. Samuel Johnson. Now, let's have a quick look at some other words, a new selection I've made from his famous dictionary. I want to make these videos quite short because I think they can be a bit of fun if they aren't too long. So I've only chosen 6 words to go through, and some of the words themselves are not necessarily new to you, but I do enjoy Johnson's definitions of them. Now, this is like the 17th time I've tried to do this part because I find the first word quite difficult to say. The first word is ABLIGURI'TION, I suppose. ABLIGURI'TION. Maybe we can make it a contest and the rest of you can also try to pronounce it or tell me if I'm saying it wrong. But ABLIGURI'TION is a prodigal spending on meat and drink. So probably something we've all been guilty of at some points in our life. The next word I quite like the sound of it, but it's not really a good meaning. And the definition he gives, he sometimes accompanies his definitions with example sentences taken from literature and things like that. So the next word is brutify. Yeah, not beautify, but brutify. And this is simply to make a man a brute. And he quotes from Congreve''s Old Bachelor, where he says, "O thou salacious woman, am I then brutified? I feel it here, I sprout, I bud, I blossom, I am ripe horn mad." Sounds a bit racy, doesn't it? Anyway, brutify. It's a good word. The next one I like is a verb, and this is the verb to dishevel. We know the word dishevel today, but this verb to dishevel, and he defines it as to spread the hair disorderly. Probably a bit like mine, actually. I didn't realize how disheveled I was looking today. To spread the hair disorderly, or to throw the hair of a woman negligently about her head. Interesting. Right. The next word is very pertinent to the times we're living in, and this is epidemic. This is epidemic with a K. Meaning is the same, but I like his definition. And he defines it as that which falls at once upon great numbers of people as a plague. So there we go. Certainly suits us at the moment, doesn't it? The next word I would like to look at is the word faintling. Faintling, which he defines as a timorous, feeble-minded. And he says this is a burlesque or low word. And the example he gives is from Arbuthnot'S History of John Bull. And it's, there's no having patience. Thou art such a faintling silly creature. Thou art such a faintling silly creature. Not you, of course, but it's just an example. And then the last one I really like, because it kind of, fits in with the age, I suppose, though, given the way things are in Britain at the moment, it probably isn't much different. So this is the verb to Frenchify, and he defines that as to infect, can you believe that? To infect with the manner of France. Personally, I would look at that as maybe being a positive, but, I quite like France and French culture. But yes, he defines to Frenchify as to infect with the manner of France. And he says to make a coxcomb, which I think is a flower these days, but apparently at his time, a coxcomb was a vain and conceited man or a dandy. It's a nice phrase, isn't it? A vain or conceited man or a dandy. And he gives some examples from literature. He gives one here from Camden's Remains. They misliked nothing more in King Edward the Confessor than that he was Frenchified, and accounted the desire of foreign language then to be foretoken of bringing in foreign powers, which indeed happened. Well, I suppose there's no arguing with that. It did indeed happen. So, And then he also uses Shakespeare's As You Like It. Has he familiarly gosh, I've struggled with words today. As I said, I've made this video several times trying to pronounce ABLIGURI'TION. Yes, has he familiarly... I'm not going to make it again, sorry. Has he familiarly disliked your yellow starch, or said your doublet was not exactly Frenchified? So there we go. So those are a couple of words, new words, I hope, or at least new definitions for you from Dr. Johnson's dictionary. I hope you still find it interesting, and I'll be back next week with a little bit more on the story of the life of Johnson and some more, I hope, humorous definitions and words for you. Take care, stay safe, and see you all very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.